This is my attempt to relate all those haunted and paranormal encounters I personally experienced in the past 40 years. And I hope to illustrate as detailed and accurately as possible according to the actual event. These are absolutely genuine and I kept them until now, to share with everyone. I hope you are ready. Let's begin. Before we begin, please help to subscribe to the channel. It will not cost you anything, but your subscription would mean a lot to me. So please go ahead and click on the subscribe button now. Let's continue. Last episode, we mentioned. Not long after, some of us were selected to be posted to Brunei, although most people would prefer posting to Australia or Taiwan, but we thought, as long as we get away to somewhere else, everything will be fine. When the plane touched down on Brunei's international airport, the airport was still brand new, and our 6 months overseas attachments began. A team of us, including some jungle experts, will be responsible to clear the common area from any potential danger or hazards. Brunei weather is very unpredictable. One moment it's sunny, the next moment, it starts pouring. After a few hours, the rain finally comes to a stop. As the rain stopped, we get started to get ready for the busy day, knowing that we have wasted a couple of hours while hiding from the rain. We only left with very limited time before the sunset. Due to time constraint, we tried our very best to complete the task that day. By the time we disposed all the creatures we captured that day, the daylight is closing on us as we track back to our pickup point. As we were walking, the fog is also gaining on us. Finally, the jungle expert decides that we should stay put for the night. It will be safer to go back tomorrow morning instead. We all agreed, but the current position we're at will be too cramped up. We suggest to relocate to another site using our torch lights. Even with the torch light, the depth of view is very limited. Moving ahead is painfully slow. At certain point, because of the vegetation, we cannot even see the person right in front of us even with a torch light. Finally, we came to a much wider space that could fit all of us together. We decided to sit in a circle with everyone facing outwards. In that way, as a team, we can see all direction if anything is coming our way. It's a very painfully long night. We know that it's still early in the evening and a long way before sunrise. And all we see is that pitch dark in front of us, and the quiet jungle with some crickets and frogs noise. It must be around midnight when we start hearing running footsteps, as if someone is running towards us. Then, it stopped. And, we can hear vividly peoples were whispering in some sort of language there we do not understand. Although our eyes cannot see a single thing, but all of us felt that our surroundings are crowded with people around us. Each of us starts praying according to our religion belief. Then after, there is this complete silence, but there is still that cold chill in the air. All of us tried our best to stay awake that night. However, it has been a long and tiring day, therefore after a while everybody fell asleep. Dawn finally came, and slowly, one by one, we started to wake up. As we started to pack up, we noticed our surroundings were filled with jars, pots, bottles, all over the place. As we leave, we can still see those pots and jars along the way. There were so many, we must have missed them last night because it was too dark to see anything. According to the jungle expert, he belongs to a local Yibarn tribes. These are what he explained to us. Yibarns were renowned for practicing headhunting and territorial migration, and had a fearsome reputation as a strong and successfully warring tribe. Yibarn population is concentrated in the state of Sarawak in Malaysia, Brunei, and the Indonesian province of West Kalimantan. They traditionally live in longhouses called Rumah Panjai or Bitone. The culture of the Yi Barn, the Aboriginal people of Sarawak, once considered the fiercest and most stoic warriors of the Southeast Asian jungle. The Yi Barn were renowned headhunters. Sarawak's Yi Barn forms approximately 30% of the state's population in the past. Some people say that some collected their enemy warrior's head to take home as atrophy, or as proof of their victory. Others say they had to murder and bring the skull back to the village for permission to marry. Regardless of the motive, the practice of headhunting in Borneo has both intrigued and instilled fear in outsiders for generations. The Yi Barn believed cutting off the head gave them possession of the spirit, which in turn made the collector more powerful. While some headhunters' tribes in Borneo followed a more spiritual approach, heads were collected from invading enemies and offered as proof of victory. A young warrior needed to remove the head while the victim was still alive to preserve its spirit. A head from a corpse whose soul had already departed was worthless in their view. The community held a special ceremony to appease the head spirit. They believed if they took care of the spirit, it would safeguard their village against disaster. Those unworthy invaders' heads were left to mark the boundary of their territory, to warn off invaders. The victims were almost always warriors. But the practice had a more gruesome twist. The members of this tribe were spiritual and believed the body possesses several spirits which depart to Mount Kinabalu immediately after death. The most salient feature of Dayak social organization is the practice of longhouse domicile. This is a structure supported by hardwood posts that can be hundreds of meters long, usually located along a terraced river bank. At one side is a long communal platform, from which the individual households can be reached. Longhouses have a door and apartment for every family living in the longhouse. When headhunting was prevalent, the longhouse was seen as a defensive unit, with skulls hung in the main room for protection. If you happen to enter a longhouse, you may see skulls still dangling from the roofs. The Yi Barn uses tajau as a funeral tool, like a sort of a tombstone or a grave marker. A jar would be placed at the head of the deceased after burial. Then they would build a small hut to cover the grave. Any Yi Barn grave who possesses tajau and the hut will be respected, as it represents a symbol of status and wealth to the owner. Older graves without descendants to maintain will start to deteriorate under weather and animals scavenging. Newer graves still follows the same burial practice even after some of them converted into Christianity. I wonder how many of us were sleeping right on top of their graves that night. Did we even knock over or broke any of those tajau jar? If you like the content of this video, please click on the like and subscribe buttons. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so that you will be informed immediately whenever I uploaded my next video. Let's continue. Every morning, unless we are attached to some exercise, there will be a simple morning parade near the guard house. Then after, we will be assigned to our individual duty. That day, I was assigned to sweep the pavement, mainly fallen leaves. It was a hot day. I was sweeping for an hour, when suddenly, I felt a sudden pinch on my neck, and then another time on my arm, like something just bit me. My natural instinct is to shake it off. Then I saw the wasp. Wasp is very commonly seen in Asia. They are non-aggressive and usually don't sting people. Only the female wasp can sting when it felt its nest is threatened. One thing is for sure, the sting is really painful, and I was rushed to the local hospital. By the time I arrived at the hospital, my neck had swollen. My arm was also swollen. The majority of people without sting allergies will show only minor symptoms during and after a wasp sting. The initial sensations can include sharp pain or burning at the sting site. Redness, swelling, and itching can occur as well. However, I have developed symptoms of large local reactions which may be caused by allergic reactions to wasp stings. Symptoms include extreme redness and swelling that increases for 2 or 3 days after the sting. Nausea and vomiting can also occur. Therefore, I was given some antihistamine medication to reduce my discomfort and asked to be warded for observations. It was a 6-bedded ward, and the 2 beds nearer to the windows were occupied by 2 old ladies. The beds nearer to the door were 2 old men, whereas the bed opposite me was another old woman. The 3 ladies were very chatty, very sociable, and friendly. The men on the contrary were very quiet. Especially the man diagonally opposite was very sick. He begins to moan every once in a while. The hospital is pretty quiet most of the time, just some footsteps of nurses once in a while, and occasionally, coercing the patients to take their medicines. The noisiest period is probably during mealtime when the nurse pushes the trays in. Mealtime is like clockworks, 6 a.m., 12 noon, and our last meal was 6 in the evening. It was a pretty new hospital, and it was very bright and beautiful during the daytime. However, when it comes to the night shift, the lights off are at around 7:30. It's a little creepy actually. All the curtains were closed to provide more privacy for patients, and leaving the room door open to allow minimum lights to shine in. There isn't very much to do at night, since there was no TV or radio in the hospital. All we can do is watch the ceiling fans all night, and listen to the sounds of the crickets outside the windows. The only annoying noise was the man moaning diagonally across me. Then, the nurses will rush to him. After a while, the moaning stopped, but most of us has already been woken by the commotion. Not long after, the moaning came again. Finally, the man stopped moaning and everyone gets to rest. Next morning, it's breakfast time. When I woke up, when I looked diagonally across the moaning man direction, I can only see a neat and tidy empty bed. As I was wondering what happened to that man, one of the ladies whispered to me in their local language, something like he is dead. She even accompanied with a hand gesture in case I don't understand. Day 2, same thing right after dinner, about 7:30 the lights were dimmed. To my surprise, this time however, all the curtains were not drawn together. Since I slept throughout the day, I found myself pretty awake that night. I was really bored staring at the fan, and eventually I fell asleep. I was woken up by someone coughing. When I looked at the clock, it was 1 a.m. in the morning. I didn't know when the bed diagonally across was occupied again. Apparently the curtain was drawn together, and it seems that the coughing came from the patient in the bed. Everyone else in the ward was sound asleep. I didn't think otherwise and went to sleep again. Next day, all the 3 old ladies and the man next to me were discharged. In my mind, I thought at least I have that new patient diagonally across to accompany me for that night. Just before I could comfort myself, the nurse opened all the curtains, and to my surprise, there wasn't anyone on that bed. So just to calm myself down, I told myself, at least I can sleep better tonight without anybody coughing the whole night. Believe me, being alone in an empty room at night was pretty creepy. So, after a while, I decided to close my curtains. After closing my curtain, I begin to hear whispering voices in the room. The voices are very soft and difficult to make up what language it was. So I reach for the curtain and open a little gap to see who's talking outside. From the curtain gap, I can see the dim light coming in from the corridor. The lights flickers once in a while, but I cannot see anyone. However, the whispering voices was gone by then. After some time, I saw a nurse coming in and out the room from the small curtain gap. I begin to relax a bit by then. Then, I fell asleep. Then, suddenly, I saw an old man with pale white face and white hair opening my curtain. I was so scared that I woke up immediately. Luckily, it was just a dream, at least that was what I thought. However, what I could not explain was the curtain was actually pulled open. I kept telling myself it was just a nightmare, the old man does not exist. And I couldn't sleep anymore. At that moment, I was hoping the nurse came, but surprisingly nobody came. I stay up all the way until 6 a.m. I was so happy when I heard that I can discharge that Sunday. While I was waiting for my transport to fetch me back to my camp, I asked if I can thank that lady nurse who came over so many times to check on me last night. The male nurse was surprised. He told me that the hospital was seriously short-handed during the weekend. They only have few nurses looking after several wards, and they won't be visiting any patients unless we press the emergency button. Moreover, all night shifts nurses are male nurses. The scary part of this story is, until today, I don't know if I really saw the nurse, heard those voices or seen the old man, or am I just simply hallucinating? However, one thing for sure, the curtain was pulled open when I woke up from the nightmare. Am I really hearing things? You will know when we share in my episode 6, Knock Knock Who's There? If you like the content of this video, please click on the like and subscribe buttons. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so that you will be informed immediately whenever I upload my next video.